my character's name was Ludi Bell Gussie Mae Jenkins. Isn't that an awful lot like Lula Hawkins, the lady who raised me? So all I was doing was mimicking her. I got the role. I got a Tony Award. People thought I had studied acting. I got television. That actually really put me on the map. And during the first previews of the show, I had one song to sing that was the title song, Pearly. But it kept stopping the show. So people said, why don't you give that little girl something more to sing? So they wrote I Got Love especially for me.
Oh.
So that's how I got into show business.
Oh, I am enjoying this. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Foxworth Theory. I am your host, Eugenia Foxworth. Thank you for joining us today for our On the Road segment. This show is about entertainment, business, art, and fashion. We talk with movers and shakers from all over the world, allowing them to tell their stories right here on the Foxworth Theory. This week, our guest is the marvelous Melba Moore, with a total of 11 U.S. top 10 singles, hits, and albums on the Billboard Pop, R&B, Disco Dance album charts combined. Over a period of 40-plus years, Melba Moore is one of the most enduring artists of the 21st century. A 4-time Grammy nominee and 1-time Tony Award winner, Melba Moore has just released her newest album, Imagine. Miss Moore will receive the Joseph R. Biden Lifetime Achievement Award, honoring her career, as well as a star along the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Melba Moore, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm really happy to be here, Eugenia.
And I'm so pleased and so honored that you are. Tell us about your journey to now. Was it rough, tough, or easy?
You sound like you're interviewing Tina Turner. It was tough. I'm joking. It's been an incredible journey, multifaceted journey. I started out as a child of a single mother, no siblings, broken family, New York City. My mother came from New Orleans and Birmingham, Alabama. Excuse me, I say Birmingham, but she was from Pipe Shop. You ever heard of that? No. So from a little town in Alabama, coming to New York City, trying to be a singer, she had an encounter with my natural father, who just happens to be Teddy Hill, who actually introduced bebop. So these are things that are important because they're part of my DNA, so that even when I didn't know that this was my destiny, it was. So my journey is going to be quite diverse and maybe too long to tell the whole thing, but the important part is I started out here in New York City, and my mother married an incredible man from Newark, New Jersey. He had a daughter and a son by his previous marriage. His first wife had passed away, but he married my mother, and they formed a group together, so they performed together. But he had a son and a daughter. So now I moved to New York, from New York to Newark, New Jersey. I have a sister, a brother, I have siblings. I forgot to say that my mother was taking care of her mother, my grandmother, but she had stroke, so she was an invalid. So that meant, you know, the elders tell you about your family history. So I don't know who my family is. So that's your family is the first community that you spend time with. So, but now I have my invalid grandmother who moves with us. My stepfather's mother is living, so I have 2 grandmothers. I have a sister and a brother. We had 2 more brothers later, so now I actually become a family. At a certain point, my stepfather gave us all piano lessons because he was a piano player. So now I had no music before in my family. I'm already 10 years old, and usually when you're in the package or the gift comes in you, when the gift is singing, maybe sometimes as an instrumentalist too, by the time you're 5 or 6 years old, you start playing an instrument naturally or you start singing. But that didn't happen with me. There was nobody around me at that time to tell me that I had a voice or not. I forgot the most important person in my upbringing in the beginning. Her name was Lula Hawkins. Now, she was an orphan, illiterate domestic who had somehow come from down south working with families to New York City. So she was the greatest influence on me. Now that's important. I know I'm skipping around because the opportunities came for me to get into theater, and it was time for me I was trying to learn how to audition, and someone told me about auditions for Pearlie. And the character was of an orphan, domestic, illiterate, itinerant. I mean, she didn't travel around, they shipped her around. So this is a person who had no awareness of herself, but that person is the backbone of African American history because we came here as slaves. And of course, what breakthrough it meant for not only me, but Black theater to have that story told in Pearlie Victorious. So this is why I'm saying it's very diverse. And anyway, now in Newark, New Jersey, I grew up learning how to play the piano with my brother, Dennis, who became a prolific piano player. So we'd be competing with each other. Who's going to practice on them? So there was no music. Till now, music is dominating our lives. Mother and Daddy rehearse with their band in our living room. So by the time I went to Waverly Avenue School, elementary school in Newark. I went to St. Thomas Aquinas Catholic School in New York. So I would go from Catholic school to public school. Very opposite and diverse foundations. So I go to Cleveland Junior High School in Newark. By the time you're in puberty, everything is busting out, right? But so is the music. And I'm around young people who have just great natural talent, and I'm studying music at home, and music is just blossoming all over me. So by that time, in junior high school, I realized that by the time I go to high school, I don't want to just go to public school. And I find out about Arts High, where you can major in music. So to make a long story a little bit shorter, I went to Arts High School and majored in music, and then I wanted to go to Juilliard or Manhattan School of Music, but we didn't have the money. And I didn't know about scholarships, so I went to Montclair Teachers University and did what my dad told me. He says, get a real job, because don't be like us, because we'll never know what is going to come from day to day. Well, he meant it in two ways, because we were Black, so there was never any guarantee of any employment, and doubly so, as an artist, you just were like wanderers. You didn't know where your next job or meal was coming from. So he wanted us to have, a solid background. So I got a Bachelor of Arts degree in music education, majoring in voice at Montclair University. And then I taught in the public schools in Newark for about 2 or 3 or 4 years. Then I went back to my stepdad, Clem Mormon. I've got to say who he is. And I said, well, Daddy, I love teaching. I'm really good at it. But I want to have some fun like you and Mother. Can you try to get me into the industry, take me to some of your colleagues? So the first people he took me to got me some work in clubs. So I was playing piano and singing. But we kept making the rounds to see what we could do. We met someone I had as a personal manager for a while. His name was Bobby Bernard, and he got me work in the Catskills. And I didn't have any clothes, so his wife gave me her dress-up dresses, but I knew how to lead the band because I had, a Bachelor of Arts degree in music. And so I got real great experience in the Catskills with all the great singers and live bands. And that's where all the great comics were developed in the Catskills. And then I told my manager, I said, they're having auditions. I heard that Hello Dolly's coming to Broadway, and it's going to be a black version, and it's going to star Pearl Bailey. Why don't you send me up for that? He says, you don't know how to act. You don't have any experience in that. One of the people I met as my dad was taking me around, trying to get me into show business, was Valerie Simpson. And she and Nick Ashford and a bunch of people were doing backup sessions or singing oohs and ahs for the leads, starring solo singers of that time. And one of the recording sessions was for a gentleman by the name of Galt McDermott. He was a keyboardist, a composer, and he was doing his own music from the Broadway musical Hair. That's what he wrote the music for. And he was being assisted by Jim Rado and Jerry Ragney, who wrote the book for the musical, and they were the two stars. This sounds like a fairy tale, right? So they were still casting. And so they invited everybody on the recording session to come and sing for the director and the producer if we wanted to see if we could be in the Broadway musical Hair. Well, I was the only one on the day that was interested in doing that, because they wanted to make real money, because we made like about maybe $30 or $40 an hour doing backup. So they would lose money doing that. So, but I thought, they're going to teach me how to act on the job. So I went down and sang for the director and the producer. I got into my first Broadway musical, Hair. Over some time, the female leads kept leaving, and they kept replacing them with, well, the lead was a white girl. And Hair broke all the rules. Because one of the black girls said, well, did she always have to be white? And so Jim and Jerry said, no, we just didn't think of that. So she said, why don't you let Melba try? I said, Laurie, why are you telling him that? He said, what, you'd do it, wouldn't you? If you got it? I said, well, yeah. So they rehearsed me for the part, and they auditioned me on one of the Saturday matinees. I got the female lead, but in so doing, I became the first black actress to replace a white actress in a lead role. And guess who the lead actress was? I'll tell you. She was Diane Keaton.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So then what happened, I stayed in the play for about a year or so. And that same girl said to me, well, Melba, you didn't get this play by auditioning, so you don't really know how to audition. But while you're in theater, why don't you start making the rounds so you can learn how to audition? Well, she told me about auditions for Pearlie. So to make a long story short, I was trying to learn how to audition, but I got the part. And of course, the lead, it's about a country preacher. So I'm getting back to, my character's name was Ludi Bell Gussie Mae Jenkins. Isn't that an awful lot like Lula Hawkins, the lady who raised me? So all I was doing was mimicking her. I got the role, I got a Tony Award. People thought I had studied acting. I got television. That actually really put me on the map. And during the first previews of the show, I had one song to sing. It was the title song, Pearlie. But it kept stopping the show. So people said, why don't you give that little girl something more to sing? So they wrote I Got Love Especially for Me.
Oh.
So that's how I got into show business.
Oh, I am enjoying this. So you've told us things, and it's really your life lessons. Could you tell us more about your journey? I mean, because you've told us so much, but this is your life lesson.
Okay, well, I'll look at it that way, because I may be talking to people who were like I was in terms of their beginnings being kind of shaky, and being blessed to have different elements come into your life to give you that support. Mm-hmm. And you don't know where it's going to come from, so I'll look at it that way. Well, after Pearlie, I guess I'll start there. Well, I got to give kudos to Mr. Philip Rose, who's the director of the Broadway show Pearlie. I don't know how many people know this, but Philip Rose brought Sidney Poitier to Broadway in Raisin in the Sun. He was really kind of the mentor for black people being able to enter into that racist society. And he brought R.C. Davis and Ruby Dee in. There were no pieces for us, so that's why black people didn't go to Broadway. That was one reason, excuse me. Mm-hmm. If you wrote pieces and you tried to get in, you would see that there were closed doors. And Philip suffered a lot going through that. He would get he couldn't get theaters. He would get them, and they would get our play, Pearly, moved to several theaters because they were just a concerted effort to shut you down. So I got to give him kudos for opening the door for us and going through what needed to be to build that foundation that allowed us to come in and now say, I have a Tony Award. And
Oh, yes, of course. And of course, this is all hidden, and so you did share, and actually, you've taught a lot of our audience what life can be and how it ends. Because your journey is just very beautiful, very beautiful. You may not have thought it, but just listening, it's a beautiful journey.
which means I better listen to you too. So I can get the word out of it. Because when it's happening to you, you get your side of it, but that's only half the story. You got to see what other people have gotten, and I can't tell you what you got. You have to tell me what you got from me.
This concludes part 1 of our chat with our very special guest, Melba Moore. Stay tuned for part 2 of our interview coming up later this week as we're on the road with the Foxworth Theory. I am Eugenia Foxworth. Thank you for watching. Hi, this is Eugenia Foxworth. Thank you so much for tuning into the Foxworth Theory. We are celebrating going into our 3rd season. Can you believe that? We are opening our doors to sponsorships for the Foxworth Theory. For more information, go to thefoxworththeory.com or email us at pr@thefoxworththeory.com. Thank you.